In this video, I will be continuing with construction on the model. Starting with the vertical stabilizer, then I will deal with a little rescribing. I will repair a panel, and finally add a shimmy to flaps. So sit back, enjoy the journey, and let's go. Every piece gets clipped from the sprue, but I like to deal with excess plastic once the pieces are off the tree. So instead of trying to get a clean break, I'll cut away from the piece, then take care of any extra burrs and flash with a knife and sanding sticks. Since the seam between the halves of the fin needs to be filled, I use Tamiya Extra Thin to glue the pieces together. Tamiya Extra Thin isn't really a glue, it actually just melts the plastic pieces together. So if you give the pieces a good squeeze, melted plastic will ooze out of the seam, and this will fill the seam itself. Some sanding was required along the top of the tail of the model, just aft of the vertical stabilizer. These seams will need to be rescribed. This is achieved by scoring the model first with an X-Acto knife, then using a Tamiya scriber and a fine saw to slightly deepen the line. Tamiya tape helps ensure that the lines are straight. A very thin seam near the tip of the stabilizer needed to be filled slightly. The seam should be present, but needed to be fairly shallow. For this purpose, I like to use Vallejo putty. This putty is water soluble, and excess is removed with a moistened Q-tip. The seams at the join of the vertical stabilizer and the fuselage also need to be filled. Again, Vallejo putty was used. Tamiya tape was used to keep excess putty off the surface of the model. I then used a toothpick to help force the putty into the seam. Then followed up with a moistened Q-tip. found that a panel near the speed brake didn't line up properly with the shape of the model. I'm pretty sure I simply misaligned the part while mating the fuselage halves in the last video. I decided the best way to correct this issue was to cut a piece of plastic styrene sheet and then lay it over the area. It took a while to get the shape just right, but it's important to dry fit often and sand lightly so as not to remove too much material. Finally, I decided to add shimmies at the ends of the individual flaps to remove some large gaps. The gaps may not seem too large, but if one takes scale into consideration, the gaps would have been several inches wide on the real aircraft. I doubt the real aircraft would have such large holes between pieces, so I like to lengthen the flaps with extra pieces of plastic. To achieve this, I cut an oversized square of plastic. Then, using super glue, I simply attach the sheet to the edge of the flap. I like to fill the seam with super glue, then apply some zip kicker with a toothpick. For the toothpick, I will actually bite the end of it to create a bit of a shovel. This toothpick is then dipped into the zip kicker, and a drop is set on the super glue. The zip kicker forces the super glue to dry in a few seconds. Once dry, I trim the excess plastic with cutters, then shape the new shimmy with sanding sticks. You can continue this process if you need thicker shimmies, or sand the plastic down if you've added too much material. The result is a perfectly fitting flap. Well, that does it for this video. Please take a moment to subscribe, like, and share. Please feel free to comment, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.